Of course, we all know that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But other than giving your kids nutritional food for the day, think about giving them food for thought as well. Now, of course, the new Rice Krispies Cut Out and Key placemats do just that, as kids can follow Snap, Crackle and Pop on 4 fun adventures and practice their reading skills while having breakfast. And this morning, we have parenting expert Nikki Bush joining us live in studio and talking to us a bit about the importance of reading and also story time for children. Nikki, always nice to have you in studio. Welcome back.
Thanks, Ewan.
So this is quite a self-explanatory question, but why are reading skills so important for kids?
Vital, because we live in a language-based society, and from the age of 6, all learning in school is based on the ability to read.
Yeah.
So we spend the first 6 years teaching our children how to read, and then they need to read in order to learn after that.
Exactly. So the sooner
and in
the
South
better.
Africa, the formal reading skills are consolidated around the age of 7. So we do all the pre-reading skills up until then, and that's why it's so important to read stories to your children.
Yeah. So give advice to our parents quickly. How do you foster a love for reading when it comes to young kids?
Essentially, you are part of the equation. When they're very young, the most important thing is that they hear your voice. It's very soothing for them. They feel connected to you. They know they have your 100% attention when you're reading a story to them. So this is quality time with your children. This is time well spent building a relationship as well as teaching children and imparting language. The only way to acquire language is to hear it.
All right.
So children need to engage with it. We need to marinate them in language, and story time does exactly that, as well as stimulating their imagination and their creativity and also that concentration. So you start reading a story to a child and have to wait for what's going to happen next.
Right. So Nikki, at what age would you say parents need to start investing time in teaching their kids to read?
Well, they don't really teach their children to read, you, and they just share the love of books with their children. And in fact, many teachers will say, please don't teach your children to read. We would rather do it the right way. I think there are many different viewpoints on that, and that's a whole nother debate. But really, from the time your little one, say at 6 months, is ensconced in your lap, you can take out a lovely book and start reading to them, pointing pictures out to them, saying the words. They take in absolutely everything they ever see and everything that they hear. So there's a lot of incidental reading that goes on. Even, for example, when you're sitting eating your cereal in the morning, kids often stare at that cereal box and they are seeing words, even if they can't read them, they're going into their brains. And then, of course, there's story time at night. So as they get older, have that bedtime story. It's a lovely way to slow down the day, to close off the day. It's a nice positive note for the day. And then there's library mornings, so you can take them to libraries, public libraries in the mornings. I know my mum used to take my kids once a week to the library just to immerse them in books.
Be in that environment.
Children who grow up with books are often more intelligent than children who do not grow up with books, and it's purely because there's this expectation, this marinade that they're exposed to that other children just aren't exposed to.
And I'm sure it's so important to do these kind of things living in such a technological age where there's cell phones and tablets and all of that kind of thing. But I have another question for you. Do you feel that parents maybe stop reading too soon to their kids?
Yes. This is a big problem for 21st century parents today, that they stop reading too soon. They stop reading for a number of reasons. Number one, it's easier to plonk a child in front of a television and they'll get the story there, but then they don't have you. And so you miss out on that relationship building. And the other thing is that we give them tablets, we give them laptops, we give them all sorts of devices that do the storytelling for us. And in that way, once again, there's no human factor. So try not to fall into that trap. I know it's easy, but please remember that you cannot build relationship skills with your children when they're in high school.
Yeah,
you can only do that in the very early years. This is where we start building relationships, and reading is just such a wonderful way to build that relationship with your children.
I love it. So you would say persevere, even though your young kid, you know, it's not taking to books the way you want him to, but I mean, it's good to just get him into that environment.
Yes, and remember, this generation is growing up with information overload. Once they hit the internet and they start, you know, Googling for information, for projects and things like that, they've got to have fantastic reading skills and a love of knowledge in order to cope with that overload. And they'll only love reading if you persevere. And I've brought up 2 kids who are non-readers. And it's very frustrating, but you've got to keep plodding along, because ultimately it does impact on their academic results.
Because ultimately kids are too clever, outsmart you. Thank you so much, Nikki. Really appreciate it and all your information you're giving us.
Thanks, Ewan.
Awesome. So, of course, try it out. Make breakfast time story time as well. Log on to ricekrispies.co.za, and what you can do there is download those 4 awesome adventures on sound clip while you have the placemat in front of you, and you can read and listen at the same time together with your kid. We'll also put all of those details on our website, expressoshow.com.
Make breakfast story time with Snap, Crackle and Pop and Kellogg's Rice Krispies on Expresso.